Well, hello, this is Jimmy from Stuart Arts. The other day I was working on the Mystery Automaton and my friend Ted came over and suggested that I make some of the elements using acrylic or plexiglass. And then he brought me a sheet of a plexiglass, actually a couple, and then also a piece of Corian. Suggested that I try that as well. I did a little bit of research on the internet and I found Ron Walters' video on acrylic gears. And I found that very useful and it gave me confidence in going forward with this. And then I found some templates of gears that other people have made and I just printed those out to use as templates. This video is a little bit scattershot. I'm working on about 3 or 4 different gears and they're not in the right order and I apologize for that. But I think you'll get the rough idea of what I had to go through to get a good gear set. Just on balance, I think this is a very viable gear for my automaton. I hope you enjoy. There you have it. It needs sanding to get it right up to the line. It's taken me a couple of hours to get these acrylic gears together. They still have the protective backing paper on them, but it looks like mechanically they're viable. And the next step I have is I've made these hubs so that I can lock these to the shafts. But there's a special type of adhesive that's needed to get the plexiglass to bond to itself. So I need this acrylic glue number 4. I'll have to order that, so I'll have to wait until that arrives before I can finish these. So in the meantime, I've got some other patterns, and Ted gave me some Corian material, and I've used a glue stick here to put my patterns onto the Corian. And I'm going to go over to the bandsaw and cut these out and see if I like that any better than these acrylic ones. Boy, that's pretty good. I cannot complain about that. Just taking the sharp edge off the back part of the band. This helps the blade to run straighter. But despite my efforts, the teeth ended up out of center. The center hole is off by maybe a 1/16, so the gear will not mesh properly with the pinion. The pinion is actually pretty square. So I'm going to try to turn the teeth down. And I've already increased the depth here. I'm probably wasting my time, but I thought I would give it a try before I abandon this gear. This thing probably took me an hour to make, so I'm going to see if I can't save it. I don't have a good feeling about this. I think I've got to take this thing down way farther than it can tolerate. Well, it's getting a little better. My arbor is not very square. I just used a piece of 1/4 20 and some washers, so it's probably not turning very true. It's getting better. Maybe this will work. I printed the gear template off the computer, and it seems like the template itself was probably off some when I printed it, so it could be an error in the printer. So I've got to look at that real carefully next time before I go to all the effort just to transfer the template to the Corian, because I sure spent a lot of time making this gear. Alright, let's check that out, see what we think. Alright, well, I shaved off the worst offenders here, and I'm going to take it over and see if it meshes any better. Well, it's a pretty dramatic improvement, but just eyeballing the concentricity of the larger gear, I can see that it is still a little bit out of round, and I think that's causing it to catch just a little bit. So trying to true it up on the lathe seems to have helped. So I'm going to go ahead and take a few more thousandths off of this and see if I can't move these shafts just a little closer together. Such a dramatic improvement in the performance of the larger gear by just truing it up a little bit. I've decided to put the little pinion on my Unimat just to try to get it a little bit closer. So I'm not going to overdo it, but I'm just going to make it as concentric as I can so that I can improve the mesh of the gears just a little bit. And I think that's about all. Just from the sound of it, it sounds like I am making contact on all of the peak points. Well, I'm going to call this final. These things are meshing pretty good. I had to play a little bit with the distance between the shafts there. I don't have any catch points at this point. It's interesting. I can see that my template was off a bit, and I think my printer probably printed the template out just a little bit distorted, so I'll have to really look carefully at that in the future. And I've got a couple of others that I printed out, and I'll be checking those with my compass just to make sure that they are true. And I'm going to try another set in the Corian using this pattern here. I've got a 6/2 per inch blade on my bandsaw, and it really makes quick work of the Corian. No hint of any meltiness. Really does a nice job. I'll stay outside the lines, and then what I'll do is I'll clean this up on the sander. Take it closer to the line. It's easy to remove material, not as easy to put material back on. I'm going to have to find some scraps in other colors because white is boring. Just cutting off the tips of these and staying outside the line. And I'm going to screw this thing up on the lathe. That's a big lesson learned for me. I just use a 1/4 inch 20 bolt as an arbor. Washers and a nut, and I'll turn it down so the outside diameter is as true as possible. Alright, that's going to be good enough. I'll take care of the fine work with the sander and move the sandpaper with the elbow grease. Well, this one came out perfect almost the first time. I trued it up on the lathe before I sanded it. And when I mated it with the pinion, just a couple of very small interferences, and I was able to clear that up very quickly with a little bit of sanding. And this gear set works very well in both directions. So I'm very pleased with the Corian material. Okay, so the Corian gears are complete. I'm very happy with the way this is working. I've got a 1-to-2 ratio on the number of teeth, but I think that may make the shaft go a little fast. So I'm going to cut another large gear that will give me a 1-to-3 ratio, and then that'll allow me to experiment to see what the action of the automaton looks like in either scenario. So thumbs up on Corian as a gear material. And oh, by the way, this is my acrylic gear. I have used my weld-on 16 to glue a hub onto it, and so tomorrow we'll take that apart and we'll try that out. I know that the gear works well with this spur, and that's got a slightly different ratio as well, so there's another option for me.